Welcome to Boomer Far Out Adventures. You're about to embark on another podcast trek with a Boomer adventurist, fueling your passion to start checking off your own Boomer bucket list.
Hi, it's Craig Koehn, and thank you so much for checking in for our 7th episode of Boomer Far Out Adventures. And what we're going to be chatting about is keeping our travel and vacation plans domestic for the summer season. Yeah, that would be the sound of international flights coming to a screeching halt. As given our global circumstances, the CDC highly recommends that people in our boomer age group and above avoid international travel. So where does that leave us for travel and vacations coming up this summer? Well, of course, the answer is we're going to be staying closer to home. But that doesn't mean that we have to take the staycation route. And don't get me wrong, that can be really cool and fulfilling. But we could also either hit the road or take a domestic flight, rent a car, and road trip or day trip from there. And that's what our episode is all about. Because surf's up. For episode 7, we're getting into another conversation with our Boomer Travel adventurous friend Linda Baloo, who lives in absolute paradise. Linda lives in sunny Southern California, and she's explored very extensively pretty much every inch of the incredibly beautiful coastline of California, and she's going to share with us her secret spots. Shh. Now, of course, as we travel away from home, the last thing we want to be is around large groups of people shoved into a tourist hotspot. And the beauty of what Linda's going to share with us is that her locations are much more off the tourist grid. We're truly getting her secret stash. So let's get to it and start making some summer travel plans.
Boomer Far Out Adventures.
And checking back with Linda Baloo, 2 episodes in a row. And Linda, how is life in sunny California going for you?
Well, you know, in spite of all of the chaos out there, I live in a very tranquil canyon. I'm very fortunate to be where I am in the Santa Monica Mountains, you know, surrounded by trees with lots of birds. And you know, it's just a 10-minute drive down to Santa Monica where all of the protests are taking place in all sorts of, you know, really tumultuous times. And I am sad for that. But the fact is that California is still beautiful, and I still love living here.
You know, and it is a situation with the climate coming out of COVID-19, and we're far from being out of that, of course, and adding in what's happening in our country. You got to get away from that at times just to get your sanity back. Do you agree?
Well, that's exactly right. You know, I think that what's going to be very tragic here, the outcome of all of it. I feel that what they're doing is certainly worthwhile and warranted, but unfortunately, I think in 2 weeks we're going to have a huge spike in coronavirus cases, and it's just inevitable when you see, you know, thousands of people shoulder to shoulder out there. I mean, I went to Descanso Gardens, which is not a big garden. Huntington, Hartford is a huge garden here that's an all-day affair, but Descanso is very sweet, and you know, they let you in. You have to make a time. You have online, you know, you schedule a time, and everyone was wearing their masks, and a lot of people had little children, and even the children were wearing their masks, you know, and everyone was social distancing, and, you know, that's the thing. I mean, we can't lose sight of the fact that we're living in a very dangerous time, and people don't seem to be doing that right now. They don't seem to be really paying attention to that, and that makes me nervous. But once again, I live in a beautiful region where I can go hiking, and I have trails that I can hike where there aren't a lot of people. Not everyone is as lucky as I am.
Yeah, well, I feel pretty lucky being in the high Rockies of Colorado. There was just a really cool article in Travel and Leisure on summer trips to do, because that's going to be our reality. And the high country of Colorado was one of those. They named 3 resorts, which I've lived in all of in my vagabond lifestyle over the years. But Aspen, Vail, and Breckenridge, where I'm at now up in the high country here. So I felt fortunate with that. But, you know, we talked about this in our last episode, that it's really going to be quite some time before international travel
Correct.
is going to be safe for us.
Correct. I don't plan on taking any big international trips for at least a year. I know the airlines are doing their utmost to make it safe, but, you're in an enclosed capsule with the air circulating, and I just don't think they can change that.
And that's a blessing in disguise in some ways because we get to explore at home.
Well, that's right, and we live in the United States, which is vast. What I did before this is I would take one big international trip a year and two smaller domestic trips, right? And while we're talking about Colorado, I have to say that one of the best road trips and one of the most beautiful and, just wonderfully spectacular scenery is the 125-mile San Juan Skyway, which you take out of Durango and you go up through Telluride and Uruguay and Silverton and swing back down to Durango. That was really a spectacular time for me. I've written several articles about that.
Oh, it's so majestic. I've spent quite a bit of time in that area. And when you get to Uruguay, I went from the top of the pass on my bike racing down to the bottom, and you have the hot springs there. I mean, it's incredible for sure.
That's right. Well, I stayed at the Secret Garden, and the lady who owned the place, it was a bed and breakfast, was a gourmet cook. Oh, she has spoiled me rotten, and I got to go for a horseback ride up with this guy named Fence Post.
His name was Fence Post.
His Fence Post. Yes, his name was Fence Post. And his mule's name was Muffin. And Biscuit, excuse me, not Muffin, Biscuit. But he took me on a wonderful ride. I mean, the terrain there is so steep that hiking and the altitude is high. I think it was about 10,000 in Uray. So hiking was very difficult for me. So, and I'm a horse person. So, I had a wonderful experience with Fence Post.
Well, you've also had so many incredible, you stay at home and you get to get some of the best terrain and, the coastline of California.
Right. Now we're going down to the California coast, a love story. For the last several decades, I have scoured the coast for, hidden treasures and wonderful hikes, and that's what I've provided in my book, Lost Angel in Paradise, which is 32 of my favorite day trips up the coast of California, from Malibu to Mendocino. So I don't go south of Malibu. Manhattan, Redondo, those beaches are very crowded. I don't go that way. I go north. I go, up to Ventura, Santa Barbara, which is a gorgeous seaside town, and lots of wonderful hikes around Santa Barbara. And further north, I love, 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 love the Central Coast. There's a park there called Montana de Oro that is, a lot of people miss it. It's not, highly publicized. And it's one of the most beautiful bluff walks, I think, maybe in the world. I don't know. It's just gorgeous. You have all these sea stacks and cliffs and blowholes and, a lot of sea life and birds. I just think it's absolutely gorgeous.
Well, the secret is about to be out, right? Because
yeah, well, a lot of people walk on in Montana de Oro, the first bluff, which is in a state park. But what they don't know about, which is in my book, is Point Bouchon, which is at the end of the road, and you have to make an appointment because it's owned by a utility company. It's not owned by the state park. And that continuation of those sea coastal bluffs, hardly anyone goes to. It's just, people just don't know about it.
And are those the kind of secrets we find in Lost Angel in Paradise?
Yeah, that's right. You find my special places, my really favorite special places. And all along the Central Coast, there's lots of wonderful things. In Morro Bay, I recommend kayaking there in the bay. It's a birding hot spot, and there's a lot of sea life there. And if you get out in a kayak, then you see it. If you're standing on the shore, it's an estuary, and you really can't see much, and you go, is that all there is? But when you get in the kayak, I went with this lady, Roberta, who is a wonderful birding guide, and she's readily available to take people out. And I really thought that was a great experience. And then if you go further up the coast, there's the little town of Cayucas with, I recommend this, my favorite seafood place there, but there's hikes out of there also. And, Hearst Castle is up there, but I don't put that in my book because that's something that everyone knows about. And I do mention the elephant seals because you have a wonderful opportunity there to see these behemoths sort of lollygagging on the beach. They don't do much.
Just living.
Yeah, they just lay there and snuffle a lot. It sounds like a pipe organ. But it's pretty incredible. You're very close to them. And if you go in January and February, that's their mating season, and there's like thousands of them laying there, and then they're active. And then there's lots of fights between the bulls, and,
Tis
that's
a mating
pretty
season.
Exciting.
Well, how'd you discover these lost paradises, if you will? Research, I'm sure, played a role, and you meet people, you network, and you find things out. But how'd you run across many of these 32-day trips?
One of my greatest joys is researching. And before I take out on a trip, I read a lot about it so that I don't miss stuff and so that I know what I'm looking at. And also I seek places that are not as heavily traveled, and California coast is very popular. So it's nice to know about a few places that aren't as heavily traveled. I continue on up the coast. I didn't really go into Big Sur a lot because for me, Big Sur, I've driven Big Sur many times, or half a dozen times. But I don't like really the hiking in Big Sur because it is very steep. It's a very dramatic drive. And driving it is a wonderful thing to do. But the hikes that I've taken there have been quite steep, so I didn't really recommend them for everyone. But just as you come out of the Lost Coast, the Big Sur area, is Point Lobos, which anyone can enjoy, and it's fabulously beautiful. And it's the deep aquamarine waters, and you have a lot of sea life there. It is heavily touristed. It is beautiful, but it's worth a stop. It really is. And then, of course, you're in that. Then you're into Carmel, which is very scenic and very cute, and certainly worth taking a.
Yeah, Monterey, Carmel. I love that area.
Take a peek. Yeah, there are a lot of people there, but it's still gorgeous.
Yeah, it's majestic too, with the cliffs into the ocean, and there really are big waves.
Right.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. So you're talking Malibu up to Mendocino.
Mendocino, right. Mendocino is up by Fort Bragg. So you can drive all the way, Highway 1, all the way up to it, which is a nice thing to do. And you go down, go past San Francisco. And on your way, you want to stop at Point Reyes. Point Reyes is a wonderful, wonderful national park. And it is not crowded, amazingly. It's very large. It's wild. That's what I really like about it, is you have a sense of wildness, these big, vast meadows, and you'll see the elk, lots of, wild elk. And then you go down to Drake's Bay, and there's an estuary there, so you have a lot of birding. The surf is quite wild, so you don't swim there. But you get a real, there's something wonderful about walking on a long strand of unpopulated beach with a brisk wind and, very, very energetic waves. There's something about it that I love.
And you're not far from the redwoods either.
Not at all. You just keep going on up the coast, and you pass Bodega Bay is another sweet spot there. And you connect with the Russian River, and please stop at the river's end and have a fabulous seafood dinner and have some wonderful wine. You can even stay there. They have a couple of little cabins overlooking the sea, and usually there's seals hauled up down below, and You can hear them barking, and once again you get a sense of wildness in this region. Here in Malibu, it's very sunny and glorious, but civilized, very civilized. But up there, it's a little more rugged. So then you turn inland and you go up the Russian River, which is a beautiful drive, and you go to the Armstrong Redwood Forest. So you don't have to drive all the way to the far northern California to get into a beautiful redwood forest. And it's a very civilized hike if you want, but they have much more extended hikes up into the mountains if you're fit. The Armstrong Redwood Forest is very high on my list.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. We're talking with Linda Baloo, 2 episodes in a row. Thank you so much for that, Linda, on Boomer Far Out Adventures. So with Lost Angel in Paradise, your 32-day trips with international travel being off the books, even from, say, where I'm at in Colorado, it's an easy drive to get out to California and maybe just map out via your book a great vacation.
Well, let me just say that when I originally published this book, I did it as an ebook because that allowed me to have live links. There on the Kindle store and Amazon, there's a free application. You can download it onto your phone for free. You don't have to have a Kindle. You just put it on your phone, and then you can click through to the live links of the trailheads, and the restaurants that I recommend. And you can have that with you on a road trip live. And I thought that was a really neat way, for people to have a fabulous road trip up the coast. But then people said to me, I'm not tech savvy. That's too much for me. Won't you give me a print book? So I said, okay. So I created the print book, so the companion print book with 32 images and all the links, but they're not live links. For you, it fits into your backpack. It's not big, and it's very, handy companion. I would get both, have the Kindle book, because sometimes you're going to go out of internet service, and then you can't, download to live links, but you would have the book.
I was going to say, too, that in this day and age, we've got our GPS anyway, but, you do run out of service, so it doesn't do a whole lot of good at those moments.
That's right.
So.
If you're going to some, a little bit remote regions. Point Reyes might not have the best service, for instance. That would be a place where you might run out of internet service. In fact, a friend of mine did buy my book, and he said he ran into that problem there. So road trips are the thing this year. The people have rented all the caravans. Their business is booming, and everybody in the U.S. is hitting the road, I think. And I understand it. I think that's what our best choice is right now, but I do think you have to be careful. You have to be alert to other people who are not being careful, And so when you're out there on the road, at the garden I was at today, everyone was wearing masks and social distancing, but you have to pay attention to that other guy who may not be, And I would think I'm going to be very careful about where I'm going to stay, and make certain that they're using, that they're sanitizing the places, because none of us want to get sick.
No, and frankly, Linda, there are so many tourists coming to Colorado right now. The weather is really incredible, and they're coming from Nebraska, Oklahoma, Texas, etc., because we're not too far of a drive. And so many people are just walking around with zero masks.
Not fair.
Yeah, it really is. I want to say something. It's not my place. We can control what we do. We can protect ourselves and really watch out for people. So that's going to be part of our travel this summer, to be really aware.
It's a defensive game. That's right. And there's just going to be a ton of people who are saying, if you don't want to get it, stay home. Well, I don't want to get it, and I don't want to necessarily have to stay home. I want to be able to get out and enjoy. But I just think you have to really be playing a defensive game out there.
Absolutely. And we have to get away from home. We have been homebound for so long. We need road trips coming up this summer. And with Lost Angel in Paradise, is it laid out? And I'm sorry, I'm 2 for 2 on my books for you. By the way, I'm into my second, which is fantastic, how to get great trips for free. And we could talk about that in a bit because I have some aspirations in that direction. But with Lost Angel in Paradise, is it done in sequence? So if we're doing a road trip, we can kind of just go through as a sequence?
In sequence from Malibu up to Mendocino, yes. I mean, I don't provide maps because, as you say, we have GPS, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in my stories it's not just a hike guidebook. I give like some historical tidbits. I have a little more personality to it than your average hike guidebook. I kind of let you know what's going on in the region and so on. But I don't provide maps. So, you will need your GPS, but as far as it going, logically from Malibu driving north up to Mendocino, it does. Now, when you come out of the Russian River, when you get to the Russian River, if you keep driving up, that section of the Pacific Coast Highway between that region up to Fort Bragg, which is where Mendocino is, can get a little dicey. I've driven it, but, it can get a little corkscrewy, and, if you have vertigo, you might have a little trouble with that. But you can go inland, catch the 101, and go up and drive across through Anderson Valley, which is wine country and gorgeous, which I think most people would prefer.
Good to know. And again, we're going to find your secret stash spots, which for me is exciting because you're someone that has traveled the world so extensively. You've been to some of the most gorgeous, amazing places on earth, and you're sharing your secrets on the California coast. That is amazing.
Well, if you take the road trip, I want you to let me know how it goes and if you enjoyed my days. As I said, I would take every one of my days over again. In fact, I'd love to and would hope to maybe this summer get out and about. I love the Central Coast particularly. It's just such a nice variety. And it's not heavily touristed. Yes, Morro Bay is a little bit touristed, but when you go up to like Cambria, for instance, the stretch of coast there is all preserved. It's owned by the state. And there's no houses, and it's quite beautiful.
And for me, that is a quest. I love people, love being around people, but not too many people, when I'm on vacation, really looking to get away from the city and into nature. The less, the better. So the secret stash spots sound really appealing.
That drive, while you're talking about that, my favorite hike is the De La Osa, where Santa Cruz is. The coast stretch between Santa Cruz and San Francisco is just absolutely stunning. And there's a hike in my book, De La Osa, that you can hike all the way up to the Big Basin, which is quite a hike, but I just go in like about 6 miles. And it's wonderful. You're in the tall redwoods, and there's a waterfall. If you're fit, get up to it. It's beautiful country, just lovely. I've done it a couple of times. I've never met anyone on the trail.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And the waterfall, is it big, majestic?
It's not huge, but, California doesn't have the huge waterfalls like Bridal Veil Falls, in Telluride. That's a gorgeous waterfall. But it does have a creek running through, so you do have water. But you have the redwoods, which are worth the hike.
Way worth it. I've done a little bit of camping in the Redwoods a couple of times over the years, and I love California. Was born in L.A., and we've discussed this before, and I spent a few months last year in the San Diego area, and for me, I would take my bicycle so I could do some cycling along the coast. To me, that is adventure.
Well, you'd love those stretches that I just talked about there on the, that stretch between Santa Cruz and San Francisco would be beautiful to ride. And the one, all of it actually, my goodness. Anything north of San Francisco or even that one between Santa Cruz and San Francisco is not heavily trafficked at all.
Yeah, and Mendocino, not so much either. Plus, for me, being a music guy, I love Willie Nelson, and Willie's got Mendocino County Line, which is one of my all-time favorite Willie tunes, and it really reflects the area. I mean, that is a gorgeous place.
It is. That's the thing. California, that's what I say. It's a love story, the California coast. It's a love story. I mean, I've been a lot of places, but it's really hard to find a place any more beautiful than California. There's just a lot of Californians, and they're touristed, but it's worth it. And I think I mentioned to you I'm from Alaska, and I've traveled quite a few places now, and I really can't beat the beauty of Alaska. I mean, the majesty of Alaska, you know. So I've been really lucky to live in such, you know, majestic places.
For the most part, we choose where we live, so there's a reason that you've been lucky.
That's right. You make your luck. Well, that's what I say in Get Great Trips for Free. I say people who are successful are people who position themselves to succeed. So if you know, and you do choose where you're going to do with this life and where you're going to live.
And with Back to Lost Angel in Paradise, how do we find the book for our listeners? Because it's time to start getting our summer trip plans together now.
Well, of course, it's on Amazon, as I mentioned. The Kindle book with the free app to download, and the print book is there as well. But it's also on iTunes if you want to get it there. My webpage, lostangeladventures.com. You can come to that page, and you can access all my travel books. I have 3. And then on my original page, which is lindabalooauthor.com, that book is on there as well. But you can just go straight to Amazon, probably would be the most direct route. But I'd love for you to come and visit me, and I have lots of articles on my site.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Linda. And what we were going to talk about originally was international travel, some of your amazing trips that you've spent a good part of your life traveling around the world with. And we're going to be able to hopefully check back in the future and get to some of those. It'll make more sense when international travel is back on because...
Well, that's true enough. And I would love to share my experiences down under. I was lucky enough to get to Australia before the shutdown. Just really thrilled that I made it down under to Australia, mainland, and Tasmania, which is a completely different experience. But, you know, I still love New Zealand the best of the down under. So I would love to talk about those 3 things.
You know, you say you just got out of Australia. I've got some family, a couple that got stuck in Australia, and they could be in a worse place. They're down on the beach in Australia. They're water people, and they travel the world. I mean, they're just kind of living the life. So, you know, they got stuck for a couple of extra months. No worries, right?
Right. Well, if it had happened, I who knows? Maybe I'd get some good stories. But the fact is that I was down there for a month, and I left the day before the floods, and then within a week, it was shut down because of the virus. So I considered myself. I was ready to come home too, Craig. I don't know that I would have liked to, to be there for an extra 2 months. You know, when I travel, I reach a point where I've had enough and I'm ready to come home.
Yeah, well, that's why we have a home base. Absolutely. And when you travel as much as you do, and you do group trips as well as solo trips, right?
And that's something we can talk about, the good about both, what I love about both of those things, group and solo. And when I take a trip, I always make arrangements to have a week or so solo after a group trip.
Yeah, I'm anxious to get to those down the road here, too, because one of my first big trips, and it was back in the 90s, it's been a while, but I showed up to Kauai, no plan, $200 a tent, and 8 days and staying in a hostel, and then you meet people and you end up backpacking Nepali coast in the down season. I mean, it was incredible just kind of making it up as you go. So I think there's a lot to be said to travel solo. And the groups, then you're not going to miss any of the great sites. So it'd be fun to talk to you about that for sure.
Okay.
All right.
Look forward to it.
Well, Linda, thank you so much for helping us make some travel plans coming up this summer with your great book, Lost Angel in Paradise. I think it's great because I've read 2 others, and you're a great writer. So I'm looking forward to digging into that as well. And for anyone, again, that is really looking to make some plans, it's worth picking up the book just to get some ideas and some secret stash spots from Linda Baloo. And Linda, thank you so much.
Thank you, Craig. Talk to you soon.
Well, that was California Dreamin', right? What a fun episode with our boomer travel adventurous friend Linda Baloo and her book, Lost Angels in Paradise. What a fantastic resource for road trips up and down the California coast coming up this summer. Now, if Cali is not on your radar, there's all kinds of resources for you to find the cool spots, like checking in on the website for whatever town or city you want to go to. Another great resource is one I just ran across, Travel and Leisure Online. They just put up a list of all kinds of locations around the U.S. to have fun in coming up this summer, including up where I live in Breckenridge, Colorado. Now, that being said, can I soapbox just for a moment here? We have so many visitors coming in right now for the summer from around the world, and many are disregarding COVID-19 protocol and not wearing a mask or keeping a safe social distance, and the locals really are concerned. So when you travel, please respect the community you're visiting for their safety and, of course, for yours. I'm Craig Koehn, and thanks again. Going out to our guest, Linda Baloo, for her insight, and we'll have her on again in the future. Now, I'm going to post up our next episode here in the next couple of weeks featuring Jordan Harvey, the owner of Nomad Adventures, and they take treks to Patagonia for us boomers, which is really cool. And Jordan's passion and expertise, man, it really comes out in the interview. It's really fascinating. So please check it out. It'll be out here soon. Follow us, like us, and share us to help continue grow our community via Facebook and our website as well, boomerfaroutadventures.com. And by the way, on our site, some really cool pics in our photo gallery from our various guest adventures. And I would love to hear from you about your far out adventures. So email me at Craig, that's C-R-A-I-G, Craig at boomerfaroutadventures.com. I'm always on the lookout for a future guest. Take good care, and I will catch you on our next episode.
Thanks for traveling with us on this epic trek. And join us for our next episode as our exploration continues on Boomer Far Out Adventures.